Hey everybody. Hey Sarah.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so
Good.
glad we can do this.
Me too. So it is recording, just so you know already.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Um, Pour myself some coffee, say hi to anybody. I realized last week people were popping in and out the whole time, and luckily for the recording, it kept you in focus, kind of jump back and forth between you and me. I hope that happens again this week. But if you jump in, guys, anybody who's showing up, type in the chat, and if we open it for questions, please do ask questions, right? Because if anybody
Yeah,
can hear us, see us, and is part of it, we want them to join us while they're here with us. So, yay! I'm happy to be here with you.
me too. Me too.
Oh,
I'm so looking forward to this conversation and there's so much. Like we created a very broad title that it just covers so much. So I'm excited to see where this leads, where it leads
awesome.
us. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, great. Let's go ahead and jump in. Anything you would like us to know before we begin?
Um, sure. Yeah, I guess I'll just introduce myself in
Perfect.
your world. I am Sarah Eiley, and my primary role in life is as mama to four big kids. I no longer have babies at home. I have all school-aged and teenage kids, one going off to college, which is crazy to even say coming out of my mouth.
Love
Because the
it.
baby years feel so, you're just in the trenches with young kids for so long. And I can't believe that I'm in this new phase of my life with older children. I have been a birth worker. I've been involved in birth work for 20 years,
Ooh,
first
okay.
as a doula, and always with my sights set on midwifery. But I started a family of my own when I was young and young in the birth work path. And so it took me a long time to find my way into the path for midwifery that felt right for me, that felt aligned for my family and the lifestyle that I wanted. And just to find to even decide how I would step into the calling of midwifery. But the calling
Mhm.
was there really, really early on. It took me nearly 20 years to make it to where I am now. So now I'm a solo practice midwife. I say solo practice, though I practice in community with the support of other midwives. And I keep my practice sweet and slow and small, really rooted to my local community. I thought that I would be traveling and gallivanting all over the world, but I
Okay.
feel like in this season I'm keeping things really low key and really rooted to home. So for me, that means fewer clients a month and really deeply integrated relationships, community, uh, and I'm a community group facilitator. And I'm in the process of becoming an ordained community chaplain, an interfaith chaplain. So all of
Oh,
these things tie together for our subject today.
they really do. They really do. So, for anybody who's just logging in, this is Sarah Eiley. She is a certified professional midwife, but that is just one set of credentials. And she just told us all about everything else she's doing. And, Sarah, when we chatted before the interview, we connected on that level of ministry as well. How ministry and midwifery both found their way into our path at different points in our path. For me, it's funny when people ask me about my path to midwifery because my path to ministry is very similar. I became a credentialed midwife because people kept asking me to go to their births. I became an ordained minister because people kept asking me to officiate their marriages and also come and do their births and do blessing ways. And these calls into community, right? The call into community. Can you help me navigate this veil moment, this moment of ritualistic change, whether it be joining in union, whether it be welcoming a baby, right? Doing 120-day ceremonies and pregnancies as blessing ways. And it all just makes my heart so full. It's so part of the whole path, right? They are separate, but they are not. And they're
Right.
very, very similar in their energetic makeup and how they've surfaced in the garden of my life. So I'd love to hear more about that. Tell me a little bit more about the ministry and midwifery
Yeah.
flow for you.
Sure. Well, I have had my own really interesting path through a faith-based life, a life that wove into religious spaces and then out of them again.
Mhm.
I was officially serving in a ministry capacity through the sort of church ordained ministries for many, many years.
Mhm.
And part of that was that I was having young babies at home of my own, and I knew that it wasn't my season to be on call as a midwife, but I
Mhm.
still knew I needed to be in the work in the midst of motherhood. And so for about a decade, I was the director of a ministry for teen moms. And so I was still attending births, just not in a midwifery capacity, more in a doula capacity. But I also was engaged in all different kinds of ministries to women. In that season of my life, it was Bible studies, it was moms
Mhm.
groups, and it was this ministry for teen moms. And I think that as my own faith and spiritual journey evolved, it all just became more expansive of just ministry to women. That's always been my lane. That's always been where I've been felt called and comfortable, and where I've been serving, connecting women to community, and seeing the incredible need of women in all different ages and stages of life for feeling a sense of belonging in our very isolated world. And so that, I guess, is my ministry, helping women find connection and community. Um, yeah, that's a long-winded answer for a complex question.
It's okay. It's okay. I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so the archetypes, right? The weaving of a village and how there is an interconnection of the archetypes in the formation and really the strength of the netting of the village. So we
Mhm.
know in midwifery that midwife means with women, right? With woman. It is also really an example of a power with paradigm in action, right? We
Mhm.
don't get behind our clients and push. We don't get ahead and pull. We walk with them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so walking with the archetypes, no matter what season you may be in right now, right, in this moment, I want to hear a little bit more about that from you.
Yeah, sure. So there's an idea that I borrow from a dear friend of mine, Belinda Lachey, who's a
Mhm.
CNM and was a traditional midwife in the mountains. And she talks often about how when women go to a midwife, when they seek out a midwife, and we're talking about like now modern day women, they book their appointment at the OB team that has a nurse midwife on staff, right? They make their appointment to go to the doctor's office and meet a midwife. On some level, there is an archetypal ancient journey within every woman who seeks a midwife and believes that they're going to see the wise woman. And whether it's an unspoken belief or an acknowledged belief, they believe that they're seeking someone who has greater wisdom. And sometimes that means that they expect a more holistic experience of their care than what they would typically get at a doctor's office. But it's ancient. It's woven throughout all of our history and folklore, fairy tales, where there's the story of the maiden going to seek out the witch in the woods. Right? It's like in every fairy tale, there's the Baba Yaga, the witch in the woods, who has the answer or the secret spell or the special formula. And
Yeah.
on some level, every woman is participating in that folklore when they go to see a midwife. They're seeking the wisdom of ages past, they're seeking the wisdom of someone who's walked this path before them. And it is part of their transition out of maiden and into motherhood to seek that wisdom. And also, it becomes sort of a disjointed experience when they maybe don't receive that kind of wise woman care. And they, often I think women feel disappointed to realize that they're not going to get that kind of holistic, fully fleshed out, wise communal care. Um, and also, I think a lot of midwives feel like their training is inadequate to support their desire to step into that archetype of the wise woman. They feel like, I didn't get very much education on nutrition or on herbs or on these extra special modalities, or, we didn't get training in how to hold space in a sacred way. So that has really become a passion of mine to sort of mentor and see that grow, the skill of stepping into the wise woman. That's what I aspire to be. It's not a title that I can claim for myself yet. I'm still young in my midwifery years, still very much in my motherhood years, but I aspire to be the wise woman that women seek for comfort and advice and holding space. Yeah, and I think when we talk about the archetypes of maiden, mother, crone, wise woman, it's also helpful to imagine building the scaffolding of a life and support system that is really modeled after the sort of elusive idea of the village, that it takes a village to raise a child, to raise a family. To think about the benefits of having a multi-generational patchwork of support from women from all different backgrounds, in all different ages and stages of life. And so you can seek out a midwife who's maybe even a peer at the same age and stage of life as you, and still you are archetypally tapping into that idea that you're seeking out wisdom. There's so much we can jump into with this.
Well, let's pause there, because I think there are a couple of great things to note, and because we have to understand that reality is actually woven from lore, and vice versa, right? That art mimics reality, mimics art, that it becomes this play of what used to not be possible now is not only possible, it's normal. What used to not be possible is now possible. Now it's very normal. Okay. That is phase state change between maiden, mother, and crone. What maidens face as they come into maidenhood, how we ritualize it, right? That they understand where they belong and how they're supported, right? That they're supported into this from childhood to maidenhood, right? And then from maidenhood into motherhood, right? To seek someone who's already gone through it, right? To be with you, to walk it is very power with. It is the utilization of resources. And a lot of this always harkens back to permaculture, indigenous wisdom of life cycles, ecology, right? And in this idealized village, our women would be surrounded. In a matriarchal alignment, women and children would sit well in the center of a very thriving garden, right? We do not chase butterflies, right? We grow a garden that attracts them in, and we are sweet. Right? This is a very different alignment of energy to center that thriving, being the mother and the child, right? And so the disjointedness that you discussed, right? That what someone may seek, and does that disjointedness just come sometimes from provider or deficit to sit in that more holistic space? Sure. But sometimes it comes from toxic trauma bonding and clients to mother figures who could not show up. And now they're looking for that in the midwife. And the midwife was never going to be able to be their mom. But the midwife, if she's done her job right, has shown that maiden, right, just by standing with her, that she is capable of the transmutation, of that butterflying, right, from maiden to mother. Because that is the wisdom in matriarchy. That is the power with, is that we are not doing it for you, right? We are doing it with you. And when it's normalized and it's contained, and then it's actually integrated into the society, and it becomes that matrilineal and matriarchal holding, then everybody has a place of belonging and a space to be fully a maiden, right? To know they will be held as they transition into motherhood, where our elders are held, right? The elder women, they are sought for this wisdom, right? And what's interesting to me about all of that, again, is it's not that we're just seeking out women of different ages. It's actually that we're transmuting inside of ourselves routes of connection to our own crone, our own maiden. I mean, I'm 42 and I am in motherhood, right? I am in the middle of the beautiful, glorious messy, delicious, chaotic, explosive garden of my creation of motherhood, right? And the people I want to keep most proud are 8-year-old me and 80-year-old me, right?
Yeah.
And how do I honor 8-year-old? This, it keeps it simple for me. How do I honor these? They're like, be present, enjoy it now, right? I
Yeah.
take little snapshots in my mind of things my kids do, and I give them like Polaroids to the crone in me so that when we get older, right, and we're out of the apparent stress of being in the stage, right, that I'm keeping in account, right, this archetype of my child and my crone being very honored, very seen, right, that they're present with me, and that my life is a devotional expression, right, that I am the safe elder for my child, and I will be the appropriate and dutiful ancestor for the descendants that come behind me, to honor the ancestors who have come before me, right? And so I love that it is so, like, there's so much interconnectedness and interdependence of archetype transmutation for the structure of society and the nourishment, right? For it to be something that's so normalized, right? This is where we sit in the ministry and the midwifery here, is to nourish really that womb so it can happen, so more people can do it themselves, because I am not someone else's crone, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautiful.
It's,
Beautiful.
yeah, the archetypes coming into midwifery are fun, because that is what, as midwives, a lot of what we're doing is we're just sitting as women with women, right?
It can be
I,
so simple.
uh-huh. Well,
Yeah.
and have you seen like my tattoo? So it has 3 lines. It has 1, 2, 3 lines, and it mimics that. When, you know, a woman is pregnant with a daughter, she's pregnant with the next generation as well. That we really, you are your crone, your mother, and your maiden all the time,
At the same
right?
time. Yeah.
All at the same time. And that wisdom is truly within you. And it came with you, and it's moving forward from you. And it is this connection of lineage. And
Yeah.
that is, you know, midwifery, right? We delve into the well of lineage that comes so primally. I tell everybody, I was like, it's funny that people are like, oh, I don't know how you could be a midwife. I was like, well, if you want to believe that like we're all one entity, or even in reincarnation, we most likely have all been midwives, because it's one of the longest professions. So
Right.
I actually think epigenetically, a lot of people can do this. I think epigenetically they've had to. So just so like, and that is to show our DNA carries it all. And so when you look at the tending of human life, so midwifery, herbalism, medicine, the tending of elders and children, the animals, animal husbandry, plants, agriculture, carpentry, water treatment, right? The sacred forces of life.
Yep.
That's really what it all harkens into, is that tending. We aren't really, do I pull a baby out? No. I tend a process that is naturally occurring, right? And if I am tuning into the wisdom that, of course, my hands and thousands of hours and years have, right? But also the wisdom that is truly inside, that is truly available at every birth, I am way more juiced to be ready to receive, being present for what exactly I'm here to do, which is watch a maiden turn into a mother, right? Maybe watch a mother turn into a grandmother if the mom's there.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. It's really beautiful.
It is. Yeah.
So tell me more. If you could pick like top 3 things when it comes to what one person can do to strengthen, even just opening the connections of village, but strengthening that for themselves in the childbearing time.
Yeah.
What would that be? Just the few things that you can think of that really will help them.
So I think that I started to really cultivate more of a passion for helping women tap into community, to experience community. When I moved from the small hometown that I grew up in, a small isolated community that was truly a village. The doctor that delivered me still did home deliveries and home visits, and then was everybody's pediatrician growing up, right? He was like the village doctor. And so I grew up in that sort of setting. And then I moved to a big city with my family when my kids were still young, and when I began apprenticing as a midwife. And so I I was witnessing the sort of great American dream of suburban sprawl and the development of
Mhm.
suburbia, and then also experiencing life in a big city for the first time. And again and again and again, I was experiencing clients who were completely isolated. It was so it was such a common story that I had clients having maybe their first baby, having moved to this city away from their family of origin, away from their own upbringing, starting their own, nuclear family under the illusion that the nuclear family can be enough, that just one person, like two partners, two adults and one baby can make a family, and that that's sustainable somehow, which is such an illusion. But it's very much the American way. It's the
Mhm.
modern way that we build families in
Yeah.
isolation. And so I was experiencing clients just lacking community and going through that childbearing year in isolation. And a doula is a great sort of modern bridge to what we used to do, where we used to live in matriarchal societies where there were grandmothers and aunties and sisters and neighbors around. And a midwife is a great bridge to that as well. But I really believe that women raising children need community beyond just the professionals we outsource to. We need actual, tangible examples of community. And so, as I've stepped into practicing midwifery, I've been trying to creatively find just practical solutions for how do I help these young first time moms uh, build more community support into their lives. Some people are fortunate that they still may have extended family nearby, or for some people, if they tap into a unique sort of niche of community, like being participating in a church or a unique sort of specialized community interest group, you might
Mhm.
find some source of community in that way. But I think for most people, you have to actively engage in the creation of community in order to receive community. It's very much about reciprocity, and
Mhm.
and that is a really vulnerable thing for a new mom who's isolated home with a baby to figure out how to do.
Mhm.
Um, and I have led women's circles through many different iterations. It's evolved over many years of being in this practice of cultivating community spaces for women. For many years, it was very much segregated by life stages. So I used to lead retreats for women who were sort of in my same stage, exiting the little baby years and
Mhm.
finally having kids old enough that you can leave and go away for a weekend. But I realized that all of those weekend retreats were attended by only women in that particular stage of life who had achieved that level of independence. And it excluded all of the young mothers who were home with young children.
Yeah.
I also participated in women's circles, like a red tent circle, and so many circles for women that were like
Yeah.
on an evening, on a school night, when a mother with young children was putting her kids to bed and was excluded from that. And so I also spent so many times organizing new mothers circles just for the new moms with babies, but that was particularly just for mothers with young children. So it was
Mhm.
all of these segregated by ages and stages groups. And I realized that particularly in my own personal life, wanted to engage with women of all of these different stages, that I valued that sort of multi generational experience and expression of community. And so it was selfishly, I didn't want to just be with the moms and young babies. I wanted peers and I wanted elders. And so I created Stone Soup, which is a model for cultivating community groups it's multi-generational, women in all different stages. And it's not itself community. It's just an invitation into community. It's a way to start making connections. Um, and so that's just one example of how I have um, been striving to help create ways for women to make connections,
Mhm.
to bridge that gap where there's vulnerability in putting yourself out there and saying, I need friends, I need an elder, I need a wise woman in my life. And also have a unique ability to mentor and give to women in another stage as well. Um, so weaving together that people who represent those different archetypes, the maidens, the mothers, and the wise women together in community. Um, I think.
I heard one of the, oh, I'm sorry,
Oh,
please
no,
go ahead, please.
you go ahead.
I heard one of the best things the other day, and it was, you are if you think you're for the revolution, you are anti-revolution if what you do excludes women or children. If you do not account for women and children's spaces, that they be there, that they be safe, that we have childcare, that women and children are included and not made to make up for that deficit for your
Yes.
revolution, then you are anti-revolution unless you make it happen. And I
Right.
couldn't agree more. And, I have two schools of, not schools of thought, but there are two things there. One, way more spaces that are family inclusive. I'm
Yes.
always in support of way more third spaces, normalized hours for natural connections that can happen spontaneously. I love farmer markets. I love kids, pop-up play things, all that stuff, right? Safe, doesn't cost a lot, right? If it can be
Right.
free, great, right? Safe places. And then also, I am for spaces that are, especially with women, that are child free on purpose. So
Yes.
having groups where it is not even babies in arms, but we are actually laying down the role of mother in order to not be lost into it. Because
Yeah.
inside the archetypes, right, I have known wise maidens. I have known childish crones, right? Where
Yeah.
we have, like, it is so, but the big thing we know in motherhood as an archetype, because it has a lot of physicalized connotation that can come up subconsciously as that movement from maiden to mother is made, and the loss of self can fall into it can just fall back into this weird reticular activating system, mirror neuron turn on kind of thing, right? And we lose ourselves. That I do really love cultivating both spaces. That
Yeah.
no, your husband can't come. No, your kids cannot come. I don't care if they're in your arms. Like, this is where we're not doing that. My
Yeah.
girlfriend and I do a group called Women Who Love to Eat. And we just go eat. And it's not to talk about our kids or our husbands or
It,
anything like that. It is to talk to each
Mhm.
other about cool things and slam a ton of food and not talk about diets, not
Yeah.
talk about any of that, but actually just enjoy some food, being women,
Yeah.
not even a problem solving space. Hear that?
Right.
Just not even a problem solving space. Because so much of that hyper individualism that actually keeps us from community comes from the productivity that gets pressed on this expectation into transition of motherhood, especially
Right.
in the United States, right? So
Mhm.
learning how to take pressure off of that, create great third spaces, right? Accessible, family friendly, safe, right? Community oriented and dictated and determined and flourishing spaces. But
Yeah.
then also, don't expect, like, if you don't have accounting for the mom to not have to be a mom. So if
Right.
you can't take care of the kids, if
Yeah.
she can't be not that, then you are profiting off her labor and you are part of the problem, and that's patriarchy.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like, don't call it different. The
Right.
women and children have to be in the center.
They
Their
do.
access, that's it. Their healthcare access, their educational access, their job security, their financial solvency, right?
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
of these things. Yeah, so
Yeah.
here we're talking about the revolution now, but where
Right.
did we think it would happen? Where would an archetype type talk go but the revolution, right? Yeah, it's a spiral, right?
Yeah.
Patriarchy is very linear, but this is a spiral.
Yeah.
Creation is it has seasons and it has essence, and really the benefit that as a midwife I know in my energy, let alone the intelligence and again the hours. Like, I don't discount what I've done to become and be a good midwife, right? I
Yeah.
also know that what moms are mostly getting from me is this running data stream through my energy, that while I'm with them, they don't have to think about, is this normal? My energy is reading this consciously, subconsciously. It is doing that. And
Yeah.
I'm doing that for them. Like, and it's not that I'm doing it for them, but I get to read that so that they can be a mom.
Yep.
And I can sit and say, as much as I know you feel like you're about to poop your brains out and you're shaking and you vomited and you're now really hot and there's not enough fans and all of that, right? Like, this is so normal.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yep.
doing awesome. Have a sip.
Yep.
Deep breaths. Yeah, you
Simple.
might have a nice pause here, right? You're probably about 9 centimeters. Like, every midwife knows what we're seeing, right? We're like, oh, fantastic. She got over the hurdle. We're about to have a baby. This is
Right.
going to be, we're about to slip into second stage. We're going to push soon,
Yep.
right? And so I try to be with, and so things I talk to student midwives about, I'm like, empathy, having boundaries with empathy is the real understanding and what we should be teaching our girls before they become maidens.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that if you like giving, that's wonderful. We don't want you to stop. You need to understand where to direct giving. One, you cannot do things for others and things that think it will help, right? We cannot toxically, codependently people please other
Mm-hmm.
people manipulatively into our things, right? We have like having that understanding before becoming a maiden. And then as you become a mother, right? What does it take to be the mother I say I really want to be?
Right.
It takes a lot of sacrifice. And what I mean by that is not what you think. It's not the sacrifice of a woman's bone marrow sense of identity. It's her ability to sacrifice what she thought for what's really vulnerable and true about what's happening. Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
really what motherhood pulls you towards.
Yeah.
Is, can I take full sovereignty, ownership, compassionately, confidently, and courageously of what is actually real right now? Can I
Mm-hmm.
come competently and know I am safe, held, loved, able, resourced, can do this, right? And that's, as a midwife, yes, you can. Like, I know you're freaking out. Like, I've said it. I said it just a few days ago to birth. I know you're freaking out. But this is textbook. Like, I wish I had a student here right now. You are a Friedman curve.
No.
Like, you are a Butterbirth Friedman curve, right? Like, you're freaking out because it's free. Like, I get you, but like after the birth, she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, it went great. Like, I could pull a textbook out right now and show you how this worked, and your chart would match it. But more than anything, I need you to know you're a badass. I need
Yeah.
you to internally, epigenetically own and sovereignty that you can do it. Because
Yeah.
I need you to own that now. Because this is the beginning. This is motherhood. Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Beautiful.
That is the big push right there. And so I tell students, I'm like, your empathy, you have to have good boundaries. Because as a midwife, if I start getting in the fishbowl, if I haven't been taking care of myself, I've been at a birth too long without a second set of eyes, I'm not pulling my village. If I'm not doing that, what that can
Yeah.
look like is me freaking out when they're freaking out. And who's helped?
Mm-hmm.
Empathy. If it does not help elevate and uplift, it's not well informed, right? Fear and intuition. If you do
Mm-hmm.
not understand upward spiraling intuition in these spaces and how to make sure that stays centered, right?
Right.
Then empathetically, you're going to make a little problem a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I try to tell people, it's like empathy, feeling what others feel while they're going through it, does it help them grow up? What helps, right? Understanding if they need help or not. Otherwise, not trying to take from them what they came to get with this transformation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most midwives, like when I see a great midwife, they know that. They
Yeah.
know how to preserve that space for a mom becoming a mother, because they get a chance every time they give birth. That epigenetics opens right there and it recodes every time. And all I can hope for a mom at her first, second, fourth, eighth baby is that it is, yes, I can. Yes, I can. And it is a reinforcement of a pathway that absolutely is making them love their motherhood, right? That they are just sailing.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because we can't help if we get thrown around, right? People think boundaries have anything to do with others. They actually have to do with our own understanding of our data. How
Mhm.
well can we be the blessed containment for what is happening while it's happening in our own life? When do we shut it off? Right? One of the best things, it's a double-edged sword, and we see it in birth work all the time. Midwifery, doula, everybody, right? It's a slippery slope between turning off your shit and leaving it at the door and walking in and loving birth work, and then running to birth work to never have to pick your shit up.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Right? So, like, there's a balance that has got to be played in these spaces of archetype, femininity, all of it. And so let me see if we have anybody in the chat. Okay, if you have any questions, anybody want to talk about anything in particular, please drop them in. Sarah, do you have anything that you've been thinking you want to share right now?
Gosh, I think that there's an invitation into the challenge of what does it look like to be community? What does it look like to be the village when you're wanting the village? Whether that's as a midwife, as a birth professional, who's needing to call in accountability, community, that second set of eyes, right? Somebody to walk with us through this work, or whether it's as a mother in those mothering years needing the support system around you. Sometimes it takes stepping out into vulnerability to be the first one to initiate the connection, and to seek it out and to be creative with how you seek it out. It's not enough to just say it's supposed to take a village. So where is this supposed village? I thought there was a village was supposed to right? Like you have to be the one to initiate. I spent a very small window of my young motherhood years living in a pretty stereotypical 1950s suburban neighborhood, an older neighborhood. And I was so disappointed. My expectation was that having neighbors living closely nearby would mean that I would just know everybody in the neighborhood. And it was such a wake-up call to realize that I had to actually initiate making those connections. That the very way that communities are built and developed is to keep us in isolated nuclear homes, and that you have to break out of that and initiate contact with that elderly neighbor and with the young mom down the street. And you have to find ways to weave community around you and get really creative and resourceful. And I do think that midwives, when we're working with young families, can be instrumental in helping model that, in even how we work. Because if we work in isolation, if we take on all the burden of responsibility of every task and every role, if we're showing up at births alone or doing prenatals alone, and we're not bringing in apprentices, students, assistants, doulas, right? There's so much that can be shared by a patchwork quilt of people who can serve and support a family. So why take it all on our own? Why not spread the load of supporting one family with a host of different characters who can play a different role? So tap into that maiden, mother, wise woman. As a midwife, have a young maiden on your staff or on your support team. Hire doulas who don't have children because they have a different kind of capacity and energy for the work, for the sleepless nights, right? About young birth workers and supporting them. And encourage mother to mother connections, and also multi-generational, bring in the elders wherever possible.
Absolutely. Well, and another sentiment that goes around is, like, community is annoying.
It's so much work. It's so much harder. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is, and this is the 21st century. We are so comfortable. We are so comfortable.
Yep.
But we're not.
Right. But we're
But we
not.
are. But we are, and so, it's just, it's that we are the youngest family in my neighborhood. I am around a lot of elders. They have different thoughts on different things, but in general, we are doted on. My children are doted on because of just where I am right now, right? And so, but yeah, sometimes I get a little annoyed at some of
Right.
them. I'm sure they get annoyed at me, right? We're different generations.
Right.
Um, and it makes me want to leave sometimes. I'm gonna go live in my single family house in this
Right.
other neighborhood where nobody's annoying, I'm sure. What?
Right.
So it becomes, I always tell people, it's kind of like you can't tell the ocean to stop moving or waving, but you can learn how to surf better. And community, not feeling like you're desperate for it, right? Desperation, neediness get nasty, right?
Yeah.
So loud, strong, wrong. If you've got issues, we don't want that. We want to come from a generous place. And a lot of the interdependence that a lot of people, because we all carry the feminine, we all came from the mother, right? So we all carry it, is do you believe it can change?
Right.
That interdependence, right? The village, just like we were talking about earlier, that netting of ritualizing these shifts, it normalizes and provides the sustenance, the sourcing, the social, the space for
Yeah.
these transmutations to be blessedly contained, nourished, and soiled, right? So,
Right.
and so there are these aspects to when you're creating community, you cannot be desperate, okay? You've got to be intentional. And a
Yes.
lot of people have felt desperation and, in fact, have actually gotten a lot of needs met while they were in a story of desperation
Mhm.
versus the sacrifice of vulnerability, which is, I actually need this to change. I don't know how, but I believe it can. I'm going to call it out to the mushroom of the sky, the mycelia of the collective, of the women of my life, of
Yeah.
everyone. Hey, has anyone ever had this? My nipple hurt. Hey, I need help. I don't even know how to make lasagna and freezer meals. Can someone come over?
Right.
Hey, that matters. So the internal process of owning the sacrifice of ego that you
Yeah.
could be shunned for not knowing. Man, there's so much family trauma that sits there for some people. It
Yeah.
makes it makes even the concept of community vitriolic, right?
Mm.
That's what a lot of people are facing right now. And so it's one of those, oh, if you don't match me, we can't do this because I've been down this
Right.
XYZ pathway of betrayal,
Yep.
of pain,
Mm-hmm.
of asking for help and not being helped, of it being worse,
Yep.
of not belonging, right? But in the 21st century, what's so poignant is you don't have to get it the same way ever again,
Right.
ever again. But it is always your responsibility to get your needs met.
Mhm.
So if they said no, or if they really didn't do it, please don't ask a fish to climb a tree. They already showed you they can't. You got to move on. How clearly can you stay in the stream? That's a trust conversation. That's a
Mhm.
unity conversation. That's a resourcing conversation,
Mhm.
right? So believing it can change is why we have to make community, because without, you're going to need to go, like, where are you going to get the resources if
Yeah.
you don't, right?
Yep.
It is the sacrifice of thinking you'll be shunned from the community and going for it anyways until the needs are met and not stopping. That actually is the transformative energy that creates mothers and villages and communities, right? Doesn't mean you put up with bullshit
Right.
ever again. It doesn't mean you ever have to stay where you don't feel loved ever again, right? It doesn't change the fact you need help. Okay,
Mhm.
right? And it's that, like you said, there's a creative responsibility there.
Yeah.
And that's what mothers do,
It is.
right? It
Yeah.
is truly that archetype, right? And I think a lot of men could use the more mother energy from their inside, learning that as well. Because again, we all
Yeah.
do that resourcefulness of, well, I'm here, so I better be able to, because that's
Right.
what's real and that's what's happening, right? And so, yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah.
Sometimes you plan things and nobody shows up, even though they clamored for it in the beginning. Oh my God, we've all had that,
Yep.
right? I don't want to be the one that always plans herd,
Yeah.
then get on Facebook and find the planned things and show up and then
Right.
don't try to take it over. Oh, hey, You don't want to be in that archetype, don't be in it, right? But like practice and play the others. And that is the funny thing, right? Is like being able to sit back and ride because it is the triple goddess is the representation of the active, the passive, and the neutral forces of life, right? The egg is active. It excretes all these chemoattractants, and the sperm are drones. They're like, that's mine, I'm going. And it pulls them up, they cannot resist, right? So you got the active, you got the passive, and then the womb is the neutral space for the active and the passive to unify into one, right? And the understanding the archetypes and understanding the village is not everybody's going to be turned on all the time. So you better make sure you have enough people so everything stays turned on. That's all it is, right? And when I moved into my area, I was like, wow, and this is what I did first. I talked to the air and the trees. I would really love, because why not?
Right.
Do midwifery long enough, you'll talk to the air and the trees too.
That's
you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, you know what I really need, life? Goddess, life, this abundant place where one apple has 100 seeds that can beget 100,000 more apples. Abundance is easy, natural, and given, right? I would love someone who would love to spend time with my daughter, right? I need some part-time care that's just really available. If they live nearby, that'd be great, because if I go on call, I might need to call them quickly. Oh, it'd be great if they like to do crafts. And I am surrounded by mostly elderly people. So I'm like, could be a great, wonderful elder who does like to get out and take walks. And boom, walk by a 27-year-old who's staying with her dad and grandma, multi-generational living, right? She comes up and we end up chatting. And I was like, so what do you like to do? She's like, well, I love permaculture, which I'm a huge fan of permaculture. She's like, and I'm interested in midwifery. And I was like, oh my God. Right. And my husband's like, Jess, is she your new friend or apprentice, or is she a babysitter? Like, again, what's happening? I was like, but her and my daughter hit it right off. And it was within the week of me just saying one morning, this is what I need.
Yeah.
That's the sacrifice. Get clear. This is what I need. This is what I need. Like a bird crying, knowing it will be fed. This is what I need. Thank you. Release it. Right. And then watch what happens, right? Yep. And people think it's crazy, but it's not. It happens all the time. But guess what? It doesn't have to be crazy. If you throw it out there and then you open up to it and it starts to show up, great. But also you can get on the Facebook groups like I also did the week before, where I was like, maybe I should look at care.com, because you're going through the steps sometimes, right? Of what parts of my community do I need to access? And I'd like to just say, before you have to go through those loops, also just tell the air. It's always listening. We're 3D beings, right? Like, so we have to exist in larger dimensions. Otherwise, we couldn't be here autonomously as sovereign 3D beings. So I'll tell the air around me, and it helps. And where did I learn that? I learned a lot of that from a crone midwife, a Belgian crone midwife, right? If you're ever lost, just ask the bees or ask the butterflies to show you, ask the animals to show you. Shit, They, and it's that, oh, that's witchcraft. No, it's not. It's the goddess. It's abundance. It's so easy. And it's that easy if you get on that train from the very beginning. My needs deserve to be met. I deserve to take the time to get very clear about what they are, no matter what stage I'm at. Mm-hmm. It is my willpower to speak them into existence, and then to make sure they are resourced in the circuitry, that there are complete circuits, that I'm not just screaming, I want more energy and more life, and then doing nothing. That I love to receive, but I just keep over giving and not receiving, right? I'm actually vetting my resources and seeing what's flowing. So yeah, the archetype it's all a spiral, because it will come back around. It will have that active, passive, neutral time. And it will, again, as it was in the beginning, so it will be in the middle, so it will be at the end. Many religious texts show that, right? And I think that's just so midwifery too. She's like, call me whatever you want, but I show up everywhere. You can never commodify me. You can never commodify the will of life and the spirit of seasons. And I love that you're offering circles from intergenerational connection. One of my favorite things is working with, I went and celebrated my girlfriend's 70th birthday in Ireland in August. And so getting to be with an elder, right, that I call a dear friend for her birthday, but she's also like a mother figure. And I've
Right.
known her since I was 14 years old, right? So almost 30 years, right? And it's this like, there is so much richness from my perspective of
Yeah.
young maiden. You know what I mean? Young maiden through now having children and still being in contact and being, and from her perspective, I can't even, I'm so grateful. It makes me want to cry actually to know that I also will be her for another young woman, right?
Yes.
That these things happen this way. And I'm like, yeah, I already am for my sister-in-law. I've known her since she was 15. And I've watched her become this beautiful woman, get married. And so I'm like, being the elder that gets to watch a young human of any type, but especially a young woman, unfold into who she always has been, but more richly. It's so that is to me, that is understanding life. Like if I want to even pretend that at least is the ineffable of the love of watching that happen. You know, me
Right.
looking at my elder and watching how she's just blossomed even more beautifully. How can I love her more? How can every day go by and I love her more? Right. And then same for this young, beautiful sister-in-law of mine that I've known now for 18 years. And I'm like, well, shit, I've watched an entire lifetime of an adult, right, come into fruition. So beautiful. Mm.
Yeah, and I love the vision of the spiral and the way that we move through seasons and cycles in our lives as women. And I mean, I am now the older seasoned mom in the moms groups who says things like it goes so fast because it's true.
Totally.
It
Yeah.
went, and now I have teenagers, and
Mm-hmm.
now I get to give those years of experience, that lived experience, to the younger moms with younger children, and they give so much back to me. There's so much reciprocity
Mm-hmm.
in existing in these different stages of life and what we have to offer each other. And I'm so grateful for the experience of having friends and elders who had walked the path before me, who raised teenagers that I could look to
Mm-hmm.
for the stage that I'm in now, and look beyond that and say, oh, they survived raising a family, launching children, getting into those empty nester years. That's what I have
Mm-hmm.
ahead of me, and I'm grateful for the way that a spiral, instead of just a circle of women, a spiral of women in all of these different stages. We have so much to offer each other, truly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, this has been so wonderful. I'm so grateful we got to chat today, Sarah. Honestly, if there's any other questions from our beautiful participants, I think it's just you and me now. They just checked out, but that is great. We are right at the end. This is wonderful. Um, so you have the Stone Circle group offerings. Do you put this here? I do want you to pitch those one more time here because people
Absolutely.
love to watch the replay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it started, it's a potluck. It's a potluck. It's so
Great.
simple. It's a potluck at my house. It started with my clients and expanded into friends, and they bring their mothers or their aunts or their sisters. It's
Oh,
become a really beautiful thing, and it's
yeah.
expanded into 4 or 5 different communities now. And I'm working on developing a facilitator guide. So, weaving all of the work that I've done to become a community chaplain and as a midwife in all of these different seasons of leading women's groups, I'm creating a facilitator guide for how do you create something like that. So that's coming. Stay tuned. But
I love it. Good. I'm so grateful. That's all, and that's the thing is I'll leave on this note. I tell people, when they're like, I don't know how to do it. I'm too nervous. I don't, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of justification of limitation that comes up first. Right.
yeah,
And so, and I tell people, I'm like, you can justify your limits all you want. Right. And in fact, if they keep coming up, write them down because they are persistent.
yeah,
Meaning, like beliefs are just thoughts you think so long you believe them. That's all
that's
it is. So, and
yeah,
that's what frequency is. Like, it's not woo woo, it's a rate, right? It's an amount over time. So, like, pay attention to the thoughts and how they feel, right? Where are you sitting at with that? But I also tell people, I'm like, yeah, but if I told you to just bust a back handspring right now, you would eat shit. Like, you would die. That would suck, right? And I would not expect you to do it. Like, I would be sad. I wouldn't want you to just be like, okay, right? You have discernment and wisdom and sense of self-compassion and alignment. We don't try to push through those. We recognize them. But
Right.
I bet if I told you to stretch for 15 minutes every day,
That you could do that. Yeah.
and if you said you could, especially if you really thought you could, like if you really came at it like I don't even care if I can, but I'm just going to try. Whatever. Open door you can create.
Yeah.
And you did about 15 minutes, there would be a day where you would bust that back handspring. Like
Right.
you would. Somebody would figure it out. You would. And there would be a day where you're doing it so easily, you don't even remember that there was a time where you couldn't. I was like, and that's community. Right. And if you let yourself get the betrayal trauma from humans being humans, instead of just like, okay, well, that's redirection. They don't have the resourcing. Let me go to somebody who might, and where it feels like there's resourcing, and let me start growing more of these cycles with people where it feels resourcing. There will come a day where you don't even remember being under resourced again. You will really understand why it pays. Just like a garden, it might take a little bit to put it in. Mm-hmm. If that ground is hard, it's going to be a minute. We're going to have to do some work, right? But once it's in, it is not a lot of labor for return.
That's right. Yeah, it starts so simple.
Mm-hmm. It does. And we have to remember that. Can you believe it? Like this, do you believe it can change? If people say no, then back off. Then back off.
Right.
Do not try to make up for with physical effort or force that you can't get up to in fucking belief. Mm-hmm. You'll just run yourself right into burnout in a wall. If you don't believe it, just back off. Find something general. Find something gentler. Find something easier.
Right.
Right. If you're addicted to making things hard for yourself, you probably believe that it's fucking more valuable if it's hard. And that sucks. Like, that's something you can work on, right? Like, we all can stop believing stupid shit. It just takes recognizing it, right? A lot of the time I tell people too, I'm like, the best part is science already told us. Science already said, hey, when something knows it's being observed, it has to change behavior. So once you noticed it, you don't have to do shit. Stop trying to heal. It has to change behavior. Entanglement goes that way. Like, we are not dumb. This is something that is in science. So stop getting fucked up on healing and start really just keep going forward and let life do its work through you, right? Trust yourself. Keep moving. Yeah. And for me, that is that. Are you ballsy enough to be confident, courageous, compassionate, and competent, and not bring, I don't know if I can do this, into the equation?
Yeah.
In any situation, because that competence, that confidence, you don't have to know everything to be confident. You can say, I'm going to ask for help the moment I need it, and I will make sure my needs get met until it's done.
Right. Right.
And people, people are like, well, how do you have that self-worth? I almost died not having it. So, like, I'm going to tell you now to get a village. You don't have to.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But, like, believe people. You know, most people who came here and got to this place, it wasn't some fucking sunshine rainbows thing. It was burnout, and it was almost dying. It was starvation and malnourishment. It was abuse. Right? Most people it's not something fairy and rainbows. They actually had to come up, and community helped. So they found it. They fell into buckets that weren't as holy as the toxic situations they used to be in.
Right.
You know? And they built new things.
Yeah.
And that can you believe it can change? And that is why we need each other, because we have to feel around ourselves the embodiment of women who have seen it changed. Divorce, loss of children, miscarriage, loss of parents, right? If being near anyone who's experienced it before, their love is, right? Wherever two or more of you are, there I am, as Christ said, right? So it's that to me is the essence of that community. Yeah, they can be annoying. And Bob is going to yell about your dog.
Right. Yeah.
Like, who cares?
It's worth it. Yeah.
Who gives a shit? Like, literally, who cares? Like, there becomes a point where you just, well, you know what, though? If anybody else came and messed with Bob, that's my piece of shit. Don't fuck with them, right? Like, there becomes that aspect to it. We start to get hot, right? Because I'm used to him being that way. You can't mess with him, right? So it's funny that you can start to fall in love with the messiness the more support you have. And
Mhm.
that
That's
is what moms need to feel safe in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Amen.
Oh,
Well,
Sarah,
thank
so
you
good to
so
chat with
much.
you.
I know. I just loved it. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We'll
Are you going to be coming down towards the beach for the summer at all?
possibly that.
I
I
was
mean,
going to say, let's hang out this summer.
sounds
Let's
good
see.
for a beach trip. Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on to Birth Working. I'll see you
Thanks.
later. Bye, everybody.